Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our third meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I know we've got some guests. Before we do that, Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Senator Byrd. Present. Senator Carroll. Here. Senator Deneen. Here. Senator Neal. Senator Schickel. Senator Stivers. Senator Storm. Here. Senator Turner. Here. Vice Chair Wheeler.
Here.
Chair Westerfield.
Here. I know Senator Neal is here, but maybe he stepped right back out. All right. We have some guests. Senator Carroll first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm honored to have with me today Warren Shepard. He's here to my right. He's an 8th grader at Reedland Middle School, which is just outside of Paducah. He came up to Page a couple weeks ago. We didn't really do anything on the floor, so I invited him to come back today and spend the day with us. So honored to have him here, and hope he enjoys his day.
Very good. Welcome. Senator Wheeler.
Yes, I'm honored to have here, and as Senator Turner and I, we've known him for years. John Rosenberg and his lovely wife, Jean, they have really, John has a legendary legal career in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, has spent decades advocating for the poor and for civil rights and for multiple great causes. And even, I guess, at, I think, what are you, the ripe age of 90, I believe I saw on your last, 92 on your last birthday, that he still is as strong as ever and has as much vitality as people half his age. And they're just a wonderful team that are just a great blessing to the community in Eastern Kentucky. And we're just so happy to have them down here with us today on behalf of the American Association for Retired Persons, advocating for assistance for our elderly Kentucky residents.
Good to have you here. Thank you. Also want to welcome the students from Mercy Academy. You can raise your hand. Let us know where. That's half the crowd. All right. Glad to have you ladies here with us today. All right. We're going to take up Senator Yates' Senate Bill 48 first. Come on up, Senator Yates, if you got anybody with you. Flying solo. Just kidding. I recruited somebody. Shannon Stiglitz with the, I guess on behalf of the Retail Federation. Yes, sir. Welcome. You have the floor, Senator.
Chair, members of the Judiciary Committee, thank you for having me today. I have what would be a very simple change for a very complex issue. Right now, we've heard in everyone.
Is your mic on and to you?
Yeah,
there we go.
That was my test run, committee.
I want to thank Senator Storm for catching that. I wasn't paying attention. I was listening rapt to your words, and they were coming through loud and clear.
I got that. We just got put on the record there.
There you go.
Again, Mr. Chair, thank you for having us here at the Judiciary and members of the committee. This is a very simple change, but it's a very complex issue. We had previously changed the aggregate to the shoplifting issues that we've seen with theft. However, talking to the retail associations, talking to my law enforcement officers, talking to the county attorney's office and the Commonwealth attorney's office, the 90-day period made it very, very difficult to be able to enforce the aggregate of those offenses. One of the big issues that we've seen is these unindicted co-conspirators that uses these small rings to go in and commit the thefts. By expanding the period, we can talk to each other, we can work together. So not only will it be a deterrent effect, but also, you know, it's not always just the young person that's going in and taking the purse and things, which they should be held accountable. But even more so, it's the people who are making money off of these rings, who have just pillaged some of our retail associations. I've had a couple of different stores closed.
Motion on the bill.
Second.
Got a motion from Senator Wheeler and a second from Senator Turner. I'll let you finish that thought if you want.
I just said part of the reason I'm here today, and I do want to say that I've had a couple different retail people close. A lot of the mom and pops cannot absorb this, and so I'm here today on their behalf as well. Thank you.
Shannon, do you want to add anything? All right. We've got a motion and a second on the bill. Any questions of the sponsor? Seeing none. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Byrd.
Aye.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Deneen. Aye. Senator Neal. Aye. Senator Schickel. Senator Stivers. Senator Storm.
Aye.
Senator Turner, Senator Wheeler,
Aye.
Chair Westerfield.
Aye, bill passes with favorable expression on a count of 8-0. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Shannon. Yes, sir.
Chairman, if I
Wheeler.
might also have a point of personal privilege, I would also like to announce that my son Weston is here with me today, and he'll be on the Senate floor with me later today. Stand up there, Weston. He's on the Pikeville High School academic team, and they've their future problem-solving group came in first place at district. Hopefully, they're going to do the same in the region, and he's come down to see us do a little bit of work today, so I'd like to make him feel welcome as well.
Good morning, Weston. Glad to have you. Okay, I'm going to ask for, on my bill, if Mr. McGarvey would come on up. Did you have anybody coming with you? I didn't think you did. Members, last year we had this bill, it was Senate Bill 64 last year. This is an update to the Uniform Commercial Code as drafted by our Uniform Law Commissioners. Mr. McGarvey here, as one of Kentucky's Uniform Law Commissioners, is part of the team that over a number of years built this legislation. I'm going to summarize it, but I'm going to let Mr. McGarvey speak more intelligently on the matter than I can. The attorneys in the room know what the UCC is. It's our code for how businesses interact with one another and authorize and back up and verify the transactions that they have, secure the transactions that they have between one another. And right now the code does not reflect language. Thank you, Robert, for putting that map up. The code does not reflect or have language that addresses modern technologies. There's no method under the code today how you might secure a digital asset, how you might exchange goods using digital assets or digital currency. And again, this is not a government transaction. This is business-to-business transactions and business to consumers in some instances. So that is a gross oversimplification of this very complicated bill. And I'm going to let Mr. McGarvey take it from there. Make sure your mic is on and pointed at you.
Yep.
There we go.
Thank you, Chairman Westerfield, members of the committee. He's did a great job. I'm not sure I need to say anything now. I'm certainly not going to say, as some people do, this is just a simple little bill. It's not. The Uniform Commercial Code is the core body of commercial law in the United States. It's a classic example of federalism, where we do at the state level that if we didn't do it at the state level, the feds would step in. But by doing it at the state level, it enables us to slightly customize things. Uniform doesn't mean identical. For instance, in Kentucky, we have a special section on equine collateral. Texas has some on oil and gas, and that's part of why the Uniform Commercial Code works. It also works because it's a continuity of law across the various jurisdictions that allow for cross-border transactions and certainty of the outcome of those transactions, no matter what states are involved. That's the beauty of uniformity, and that's how it facilitates commerce. The Uniform Commercial Code was first passed by this legislature in 1958, effective January 1, 1960. I actually had a matter one time where the decision point was it effective at 12:01 a.m. January 1, or was it effective at the end of the day? But we've gotten long past that. But over the years, we've updated it a number of times to deal with business practices and technology. We added Article 2A when leases of goods became popular that weren't in 1960. We amended Articles 3 and 4 to deal with modern processing of checks and remotely created drafts. We amended Article 7 to provide for electronic warehouse receipts. In 2000 and 2010, we amended Article 9 to deal with modern computer-based filing systems. The 22 amendments, however, the first attempt by the Uniform Commercial Code Committee, which I'm chairman of, and the Uniform Law Commission to do a comprehensive revision of the code to deal, as we say, with emerging technologies. The amendments of Senate Bill 155 are now the law of 11 states. Those are the states that you see in blue on the map that's up on the monitor. They are before the legislatures of 14 additional states. Those are the ones in green. When you look at the states, you'll see there's no political There's no political distinction between the states that have enacted it. Alabama has enacted it. California has enacted it. Just this week, Indiana, our neighbor to the north, has enacted it. Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Missouri, our neighboring states have enacted it that make it even more important, or they have it before their legislatures, that make it even more important that we coordinate our law with theirs. Just yesterday, the amendments were approved by the District of Columbia's legislative body, are on the way to the mayor for signature, and passed out of a joint committee in Maine, going to both houses of the Maine legislature with a recommendation to pass. That's another reason I ask you to act favorably on this bill, so we have that uniformity of law in Kentucky and the other states. The fact that the amendments are now the law of 11 states has already caused conflict of law issues, such that the permanent editorial board for the code has issued a commentary to help deal with those conflicts. As we get more states on board, that problem is going to go away. The bill, as Senator Westerfield said, is the same bill that was before you last year. It passed unanimously out of this committee, came out of the Senate 34-0. It stalled in the House because of a controversy that got started in South Dakota. It was a conspiracy theory, if you will, that what this bill was about was to facilitate a central bank-backed digital currency. It's not. That controversy has cleared. It came out of Senate committee 12-1 in South Dakota this week with the support of Governor Noem, who had vetoed the bill up there originally. Although new Article 4 does deal with digital assets, the Uniform Commercial Code Committee, the Uniform Law Commission, this bill, are agnostic on anything to do with a central bank digital currency. But just to make sure the courts of this Commonwealth are certain about that, if this bill is enacted, we added a section at the very end of this bill. And that section says essentially that nothing in the act will be construed to facilitate, enable, promote, create, whatever, a national digital currency. But this bill is more than about digital assets. The definitions of Article 1 provide a new definition for sign to include electronic signatures. How often are you asked to sign something electronically these days? Article 2 on sales and 2A on leases now provide for what we call bundled transactions. That's a transaction where you're purchasing or leasing goods but acquiring services at the same time, and it didn't used to include services. Article 3 on negotiable instruments is amended to allow choice of law clauses and choice of venue clauses in negotiable instruments, and to account for the electronic processing of checks. For instance, there's a provision of Article 3 now that says if you destroy a negotiable instrument, that's a way of indicating satisfaction of the debt represented by that instrument. We're removing that because checks are now destroyed after 45 days once they've been truncated. Article 4 on wire transfers is amended to account for commercially reasonable security procedures that we so desperately need in wire transfer transactions. Article 5 is updated on choice of law issues. Article 7 on warehouse receipts is amended to provide for the control of electronic warehouse receipts. And Article 9, the one on secured transactions, is substantially revised to provide for attachment and perfection of security interests in digital assets, which it doesn't do now. Article 12 will permit the citizens of Kentucky who own cryptocurrency, for instance, a digital asset, or a non-fungible token that's an electronic, for instance, artwork. People actually design artworks digitally now, and those digital artworks are sold and traded through non-fungible tokens. But this bill would allow a citizen of Kentucky to grant a security interest to a Kentucky bank, and that bank to perfect that security interest in cryptocurrency. Senator Carroll, I had a banker from Paducah call me last year and say, we have a customer who has over $3.5 million in Bitcoin. They want to grant a security interest to my bank so my bank can give them a loan. How can I perfect that security interest? My answer was, I'm sorry, you can't. We don't provide a mechanism for it. This bill provides that mechanism. I know of no opposition to the bill. I'm assured it's supported by the Kentucky Bankers Association. I saw John Cooper and Tim Shank here in the audience this morning, and they can speak for themselves on that. I urge you to act favorably on this bill to facilitate commerce in the Commonwealth, to give Kentucky's businesses, its lenders, and consumers the certainty they need to facilitate commerce and commercial transactions through the uniformity of the law. I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Mr. McGarvey. We do have a couple of questions. Senator Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was taught there's no such thing as a dumb question, so I'm gonna ask my question. Because I didn't grow up in this digital world. I do not understand digital currency. Give me just 3 examples of what a digital asset actually is.
Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, is a digital asset. It only exists in the computer world. It's a part of distributed ledger technology. And if you are a banker and you want to take a security interest in that, you can't do it today because you have no way of putting the world on notice that you have that interest. But this bill creates a system of control where you grant control of that asset through the crypto key to reach that asset to your bank, so that the bank now has control of that asset and the ability to transfer all or substantially all of your interest in it if you default on the loan. But importantly, we built what's called a take-free rule into Article 12. That's similar to a negotiable instrument. If someone endorses to you a negotiable instrument, even though they may have pledged an interest to somebody else, you get that free and clear of that interest because that somebody else didn't take possession of the instrument. Well, here we do the same thing by allowing someone else to take control. But if that someone else doesn't take control and that person sells you their Bitcoin, you take it free and clear of that interest because they didn't take control. So we attempt to protect the purchasers of digital assets in that manner.
Clear as mud. I also want to say I don't know that you said it, but I also want to remind members, same as last year, because the bill is the same. But there are cryptocurrency industry folks that helped consult on the language for the bill.
Oh, absolutely. There were some last year nationally that weren't sure they were in favor of it. Others that were. The industry as a whole today is in favor of this bill because, as I indicated, it makes cryptocurrency something that it doesn't enhance the value in terms of the dollar value. It enhances the value in terms of what someone is able to do with it.
Think about it this way, Senator. If setting Bitcoin transactions on the side for just a minute, if I'm going to buy something from you, there's a paper trail that assures you of what your rights are, what mine are, what assets I have. Maybe I'm just handing you cash. There's something there that makes the transaction confident, or builds confidence and establishes confidence and trust in the transaction from both parties. Even with other negotiable instruments and written documents that transfer interest and assets between parties, you've got that document there. In a digital asset, you don't have a thing you can touch. You don't have it exists, but it exists digitally, and the code currently doesn't give any way for that asset to be used.
As I said earlier, it's the certainty of outcome
right
of commercial transactions that facilitates commerce. And this bill gives you a certainty of outcome when digital assets are transferred, when security interests are taken. The other, you asked for examples. A non-fungible token, you can actually go out on the internet today and buy digital art. And you can plug that art into your home computer system and display it on big screen televisions as you might a painting. Today, there is no way, if you were purchasing a very valuable piece of art, to know you're taking it free of somebody else's interest. There's no way that a bank could take a security interest in that non-fungible token. But through the control mechanism that this bill sets up, that's now possible.
A follow-up question, sir?
If we have time, I'm going to move on to
Okay.
Senator Wheeler.
Mr. McGarvey, I guess my question would be, there's a lot of predatory lending on, a credit card debt that have very limited means that, these banks sell it off for 3 cents on the dollar, and then they try to come back on people years later. Oftentimes the defense to that was when you ask them if they got an original contract, they can't produce it, which is required under the rules of evidence. Is this going to abrogate that in any way?
It would not abrogate that in any way, sir. It doesn't relate to the specific.
And just a brief follow-up, Mr. So basically, we're kind of legitimizing the crypto industry and passing this bill as an authentic and legitimate means of completing transactions within the Commonwealth. Is that true?
I wouldn't go that far. In the event that a bank wants to take a security interest in, I'm hesitant to mention the name of the bank other than say it's a Paducah bank, but they did want to. And there's no way for them to do it now. This provides a way for them to do it.
I don't know if I want banks taking interest in that stuff. So
Well, I think that's something the regulators would look at too, in terms of typically a bank, when it takes collateral, has to value the collateral. The regulators give them guidelines in that regard. You can only value it at so many cents on the dollar. And that's something for the regulators to deal with at the federal level as opposed to us to deal with in state law.
Bear in mind, right now there are businesses, I'm not thinking about banks, but there are retail establishments that are accepting Bitcoin cryptocurrency, and if they have that asset,
yeah, they could do that, but if they want to legitimize it, that's fine. I don't know if the Commonwealth has to.
My wife recently purchased something from a store in New Orleans, had to pay for it in Bitcoin. She didn't know how to acquire Bitcoin. We had to go out and do it. But I can tell you the purpose of this bill is to provide not a regulatory, but to provide a state law framework for people who want to acquire crypto assets in a way that they can do it free of other people's interest. It's not intended to promote crypto.
Senator Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. As a lawyer, we had the Uniform Commercial Code in law school. And am I correct in saying now that since we are passing this statute, and I've looked at it, and it says basically the Uniform Commercial Code that national doesn't apply here, it's this statute's what's going to control the Universal Commercial Code in Kentucky?
You are absolutely correct, sir, and that's the way it is in every state in the union. The Uniform Commercial Code is not enacted on a national basis. It's strictly state law or the law of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and D.C., so there are actually 53 uniform law jurisdictions.
Okay. And then the follow-up question is, Mr. Chairman, is you said there's 11 states now that has adopted this code.
The ones that are in blue on that map.
All right. But dealing state to state, green to blue, if you're in Kentucky, you're bound by this. What about the person on the other end that's got another Uniform Commercial Code? How's that going to work?
Well,
the public just needs to know
that's a problem. The green states are the ones where the legislatures already in 2023 are looking at this act, and we hope will act favorably on it, so we'll have a lot more states on board. The beauty of the Uniform Commercial Code and its ability to facilitate commerce is because of its uniformity. The fact that this controversy came up last year about central bank digital currency that's now passed, over with, cleared, stopped a lot of enactment activity last year. Enacting it quickly amongst the states is important to its functionality. The green and blue right there represent 25 states. More are going to be coming on board all the time. It is important that we modernize our code so that we'll be uniform with the other states in the 53 uniform law jurisdictions.
Just one kind of statement. So you're telling the lawyers in Kentucky that this law is going to control. They need to look at who they're dealing with on the other end, though, to see what that person may think that the uniform code they're dealing with is. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's different. It won't have an Article 12 in it. It won't have the amendments in it in the states that are slow to enact it. But as I said, the permanent editorial board for the Uniform Commercial Code has issued a lengthy commentary on how to deal with those conflicts. The American Law Institute and the American College of Commercial Finance Lawyers, both of which I'm honored to be a member of, are doing seminars this month on that very issue, how to deal with conflicts that have developed because of the relatively slow pace in enactment. For instance, when we enacted the 2000 amendments, which were a substantial block of amendments, I think every state in the union was on board within a period of about 13, 14 months.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation.
Thank you. This is in response, Senator Wheeler, to your comments. This doesn't legitimize it, but our code has to reflect what commerce is doing.
Yeah.
And I don't own any Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency, and I'm not going to buy stock in it, and I'm not out there trying to mine it. But others are. And right now our code doesn't speak to that. I assume, I wasn't around, or certainly wasn't paying attention, but in other enactments over the last 60 years, I assume there may have been other things that not everybody wanted to use at the time, but our code needed to prepare for and accommodate.
Yeah.
I certainly agree with you that it's I assume what your thoughts are. I don't understand enough about it to feel confident in that as an asset type. And so I'm not going to use it. But others are using it, and they're not all illicit businesses or shady operators of some kind. Some are very completely legitimate, and they work and live and operate and do business and contribute to our economy and all of our districts. So I feel like the code needs to be updated. And again, not just for cryptocurrency, that's one part of the bill. There are other parts of the bill. NFTs, it's a digital asset that have value. Right now, the code doesn't reflect anything or have any apparatus for dealing with a digital asset or how to transfer an interest in a digital asset, a thing you cannot touch. This bill makes those changes and updates.
One of the things we try to do at the Uniform Law Commission is draft with what we call durability, so that we don't have to come back to you and other legislatures across the country frequently to amend the code. So our treatment of digital assets was done with the idea that there are going to be digital assets in the future. We have no faint idea what they might be, but to draft the new portions of the code so that they will be effective when those digital assets become a reality.
I make a motion on the bill. Is there a second? Second from Senator Storm. Thank you. Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, I go ahead.
Very quickly, Senator.
Is there any possibility with this bill that a bank could undermine their financial integrity by taking on too much cryptocurrency?
I'm going to stop. This doesn't have anything to do with that. It doesn't. Doesn't have anything to do with that. The bank makes its own decisions. This has nothing to do with what decision that bank's going to do, what assets it has or extends or credit it operates with.
And the bank makes its own decisions with the Department of Financial Institutions, the FDIC, Federal Reserve Board looking over their shoulder. And should they attempt to do that, the regulators are going to intervene in a second. I was just going to say I'd like to acknowledge Senator Carroll's guest. My interest in government first ignited when I was a page in the Kentucky House when I was in 8th grade for John Swinford, who was the majority leader at the time.
All right. Got a motion and a second on the bill. No further questions. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Berg. Aye. Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Deneen.
No.
Senator Neal. Aye. Senator Schickel. Senator Stivers. Senator Storm. Aye. Senator Turner.
No.
Senator Wheeler.
I'm not totally comfortable with this bill at this point in time with the crypto assets. I think it does undermine banking sectors when they take an interest in something that is simply not real and not there. And people can disagree with me on that, but I think you could have great investments in cryptocurrency that could really undermine folks who've placed their hard-earned monies in these things. And I understand. I'm okay with 90% of the bill. That's a problem for me. I don't want to legitimize these industries any more than what they already are, so I'm a no.
Chair Westerfield.
Well, I support the bill. I support the bill, but since that doesn't have enough with my vote, yeah, I vote if I were to give it enough to get out of committee, I'm going to vote no so that I can bring the bill back up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Seeing no further business to come before the committee, we are adjourned.
I didn't even say hi to you.
Way back in my life, I worked for a television station. Okay, I was sent a story.
I just know about what's in the building, not necessarily what the name is. Thank you. Yep, thank you.
Just saves money.